Have you ever noticed how, around 3 a.m., the world seems to fall into a hush? The traffic dies down, the streetlights blink without interruption. And for many older adults, something else happens. They wake up, not just once, not because of a noise, not because of a bad dream, but consistently, night after night. If this is happening to you or someone you love, you might be wondering, is something wrong with me? Is it stress, aging, a health issue, or just how life is now? Here's the truth. Waking up around 3 a.m. isn't just common. It's deeply meaningful, and understanding why it happens could change how you see your body, your health, and your aging journey. This isn't just about sleep. It's about hormones, emotions, memory, loneliness, medications, digestion, light, connection, and above all, awareness. I'm Dr. Harris Wren, a health researcher who has spent over 3 decades working with older adults. From hospice care to wellness clinics, I've heard hundreds of stories about these quiet wake-up calls, and I've come to believe, sometimes, what wakes us up is exactly what we need to pay attention to. So if you've been waking up around 3 a.m., this video is for you. I invite you to stay with me until the very end, because what you'll discover might not just improve your sleep. It might change the way you understand your body, your life rhythms, and your emotional well-being. And before we dive in, if you find value in thoughtful, compassionate insights about aging, health, and life's deeper truths, please consider subscribing to Daily Elder Advice. Your support allows us to keep offering honest, helpful, and heart-centered content. Chapter 1. The Melatonin Drop, Nature's Gentle Goodbye. A silent thief asleep. Melatonin, a word many have heard, but few truly understand, especially in the context of aging. It's a hormone, yes, a chemical released by the pineal gland in our brain, but it's also a kind of invisible lullaby, one that used to sing us to sleep effortlessly in our youth. In our younger years, melatonin worked quietly and faithfully in the background. As the sun set, our eyes sent a signal to the brain, darkness is here. And the brain responded, it's time to rest. A cascade of chemistry followed, body temperature dropped, muscles relaxed, and thoughts began to soften into dreams. But with age, something changes. Our melatonin levels begin to dwindle, gradually, consistently, naturally. This isn't an illness, it's not a malfunction. It's the body doing what it has always done, adapting to each season of life. But for many older adults, the result is the same, waking up around 3 a.m. Suddenly, inexplicably, and frustratingly awake. Real-life story. Harold and the ceiling light. Let me tell you about Harold. Harold is 72, retired, once a night owl. He now goes to bed around 9 p.m. But recently, he's been waking up 3:15 a.m. sharp. Every single night, he doesn't feel worried. He's not in pain, but he's wide awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, mind humming with memories. At first, he blamed stress, then diet, then his mattress. But after speaking with a sleep specialist, he learned something both surprising and comforting. It's not you, it's melatonin. You see, by the time most older adults reach their 60s and 70s, melatonin levels have dropped by over 50% compared to their younger years. And for some, it falls even lower. What this means is that while you may still fall asleep easily, your brain may no longer have enough melatonin to keep you asleep through the full 7 to 8 hour cycle. For Harold, this understanding changed everything. He no longer blamed himself. Instead, he made small but powerful changes. Removed the glowing clock from his nightstand, installed blackout curtains to reduce streetlight glare, took a short, peaceful walk at dusk each evening, started sipping chamomile tea instead of checking emails before bed. And while Harold still wakes up early now and then, he does so without panic. Sometimes he journals, sometimes he listens to soft music. Often, he simply lets his body rest quietly before drifting back into sleep. I stopped fighting my body, Harold said, and in that surrender, I found rest. What science says, let's step back for a moment and look at the science. Melatonin isn't just a sleep aid, it's a timekeeper, working with your circadian rhythm, your internal 24-hour clock, to regulate not just sleep, but body temperature, immune responses, and even digestion. Here's what happens with aging. The pineal gland calcifies slightly over time, reducing melatonin production. the eyes become less sensitive to light, disrupting light cues that trigger melatonin release. And lifestyle changes, like less time outdoors or inconsistent sleep schedules, further reduce melatonin's power. This shift makes older adults more sensitive to light, meaning even the glow from a hallway bulb or a blinking phone charger can be enough to disrupt sleep. And here's the key insight. It's not that the body is failing, it's evolving. This is nature's way of gently loosening the threads of a long, uninterrupted sleep, perhaps to make room for something else: reflection, stillness, spiritual awareness. How to work with your body, not against it. If you find yourself waking up regularly at 3 a.m., know that it's not necessarily a sign of something wrong. It may be your body responding to changes in melatonin levels. And there are gentle, compassionate ways to support it. Begin by creating an environment that supports your natural rhythm. Keep your bedroom as dark as possible, using blackout curtains or covering light sources like clocks and devices. Avoid screens at least 1 hour before bedtime, and opt for warm, dim lighting in the evening to prepare your brain for rest. Establish a consistent sleep schedule. Even on weekends, going to bed and waking up at the same time each day helps retrain your internal clock. You can also naturally support melatonin production by going for a short walk around dusk. Exposure to natural light helps recalibrate your circadian rhythm. Include calming rituals in your evening like herbal tea, light stretching, or soft music. And if necessary, speak to your doctor about the safe use of very low-dose melatonin supplements, starting with no more than 0.3 to 1 milligram, to gently reinforce your body's natural chemistry. By aligning your routine with your body's evolving needs, you can begin to shift from frustration to cooperation, from fighting wakefulness to working with it. Waking up at 3 a.m. can feel like a betrayal, a disruption to the rest we crave. But what if it's not a disruption at all? What if it's an invitation? In those quiet early hours, your body may be doing something far more profound than you realize. It's whispering that your rhythm has changed, that your body needs a new kind of care, that sleep, like life itself, is no longer linear or predictable, but cyclical, responsive, and filled with meaning. Instead of blaming yourself, you can begin to listen. Instead of resisting, you can adapt, because waking up doesn't mean you failed. It means your body is communicating. It means you're still alive, still responsive, still deeply tuned into the rhythm of your inner world. As we grow older, we are asked not to sleep like we did at 30, but to honor the changes that come with 60, 70, 80, and part of that honoring is understanding the delicate loss of melatonin not as a flaw, but as a part of the long, breezeful goodbye that nature orchestrates within us. So tonight, if your eyes open at 3 a.m. and the silence feels loud, know this: you're not broken, you're transforming, and in that transformation, there is still so much peace to be found. Chapter 2: The Shifted Clock, Advanced Sleep Phase and Rhythm Drift. When the clock moves without you, for much of your life, your body has followed an internal rhythm, a natural clock that knows when to wake, when to rest, when to eat, and when to repair. It works in harmony with the world around you: sunrise, sunset, seasons, meals, activity. But as you age, that clock doesn't just slow down, it shifts forward. This phenomenon is called advanced sleep phase syndrome, and it means your body begins to feel sleepy earlier in the evening and wakes up earlier in the morning, often without your consent and sometimes without your understanding. You may begin to notice it when you find yourself drifting off during your favorite late-night movie, or when you start waking up before the sun, fully alert, even if you didn't plan to rise so early. While this may seem like a nuisance at first, it's not a sign of brokenness. It's the result of a biological change that affects nearly all of us as we age. Real-life story: Charles and the 5 p.m. dinners. Charles is 68 and recently retired after 4 decades of corporate work. For years, he lived by alarms, meetings, deadlines, and family routines. His day was structured, predictable, full. Now, life is quieter. He eats dinner around 5 p.m., watches the news, maybe reads a little, and by 9 p.m., he's in bed. But here's the part that confused him. For the past several months, he's been waking up like clockwork, 3 a.m. sharp, feeling rested but puzzled. At first, he thought something was wrong. Was it insomnia, stress, a health issue? After speaking with a sleep specialist, Charles learned that his circadian rhythm had simply moved forward. His body had adjusted to a new routine, one that naturally made him fall asleep earlier and finish his sleep earlier. 2. And once he understood this, he stopped resisting it. He began stretching his evening with small, meaningful changes. A gentle walk after dinner, a phone call with his daughter, a chapter or two of a book under warm light. These small actions pushed his sleep onset back by just 30 to 45 minutes. But that small shift helped him wake closer to sunrise, instead of in the middle of the night. I didn't need pills, Charles said. I just needed to listen to my rhythm and gently guide it. What science says about circadian shift? Your body runs on what scientists call a circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour cycle regulated by hormones, temperature, light exposure, and routine. In your youth, this cycle aligns more closely with later bedtimes and later wake-ups. But as you age, melatonin is released earlier in the evening, and cortisol, your natural alertness hormone, begins rising earlier in the morning. This shift is influenced by decreased light exposure, especially natural light, reduced physical activity in the late afternoon or evening, less social stimulation after retirement, earlier meal times. The result, you fall asleep earlier, and, without realizing it, your body finishes its rest by the time 3 a.m. rolls around. It's not insomnia, it's biology. In fact, studies from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, show that the average sleep-wake timing for older adults shifts by 1.5 to 2 hours earlier compared to younger individuals. This means someone who used to sleep from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. might now naturally sleep from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., or even earlier. How to work with the clock, not against it. So, what can you do if your body seems to be waking you too early? The key is to gently introduce signals that tell your body, we're not ready to sleep yet. This can be done in simple ways. Start by adding a little more brightness and movement in your evenings, not stressful activity, but soft stimulation. For example, read with a warm lamp instead of dim light. Call a friend, go for a 10-minute walk outside after dinner. Even watering the plants or listening to a podcast can subtly tell your brain, we're still awake. Avoid lying down immediately after dinner or napping in the early evening. These can reinforce the early sleep. Early wake cycle. Instead, try to keep your mind and body lightly engaged until closer to your desired bedtime. If you eat dinner very early, consider a light evening snack like warm milk, banana, or a handful of nuts. This not only stabilizes blood sugar but also keeps your body from interpreting full belly plus darkness equals bedtime too soon. Over time, these small cues, light, activity, conversation, routine, can gently pull your circadian rhythm closer to your preferred schedule. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. The clock within you is not broken, it's simply advancing, evolving, shifting with time. Just as the sun sets earlier in winter, your body may be settling into rest earlier in this season of life. But here's the beauty. You are not powerless in this shift. You can respond with compassion instead of frustration. You can shape your environment, your habits, your pace, so that the rhythm of your body begins to move in harmony with the rhythm of your life. Waking up at 3 a.m. doesn't always mean something is wrong. Sometimes, it means you've completed your natural sleep cycle early because your bedtime started earlier than you realized. Sometimes, it means your body is working perfectly, but the world around you hasn't caught up. And sometimes, it's an invitation to gently stretch your evenings with light, movement, and warmth. An invitation to guide your rhythm, not force it. An invitation to remember, even as your clock shifts, your power to shape it remains. So next time you find yourself awake in the early hours, take a breath, not of panic, but of understanding. You are not alone, you are not broken, you are simply learning a new rhythm. And in that learning, there is peace. Chapter 3. Pain in the Silence. How the Body Speaks Through Discomfort. When the body whispers at 3 a.m., at 3 o'clock in the morning, the world is still. There are no doorbells, no phone calls, no appointments. But sometimes, in that silence, the body finds its voice. It's not always loud. It may be a dull ache in your hip, a twinge in your back, or a pressure in your bladder you can no longer ignore. It may be dry mouth, a burning in your chest, or even the tightness of a cramp in your calf. These are not emergencies. but they are interruptions, subtle signals that pull you out of sleep and into awareness. And as we age, these signals become more frequent, more insistent, and sometimes more mysterious. Real-life story. Eleanor and the Midnight Bathroom Light. Eleanor is 76 and has always described herself as a light sleeper. But in the past year, she's noticed a pattern. At exactly 3:30 a.m., she wakes every night, not in pain, but with a sense of urgency, her bladder demanding a visit to the bathroom. At first, she thought it was just age. Then, she noticed that once she returned to bed, she struggled to fall back asleep. Her body felt alert, her mind restless. What Eleanor didn't know was that her blood pressure medication, taken at dinner time, was acting as a mild diuretic, causing nighttime urination. On top of that, a recent change in bedroom temperature and her tendency to fall asleep by 8:30 p.m. were compressing her sleep window. In just 7 hours, her body had completed its cycle. And now, even the smallest discomfort was enough to wake her. After discussing with her doctor, she shifted her medication to earlier in the day, added a light evening snack, and kept her bedroom slightly cooler. Within weeks, her 3:30 a.m. wake-ups became less frequent. And when they did happen, she was able to drift back into sleep with more ease. It wasn't just my bladder waking me, she said, it was my entire routine asking to be rebalanced. What science says about aging bodies and disrupted sleep. As we age, the body becomes more sensitive, not weaker, but more responsive. Here are some common physical reasons older adults wake up in the early morning. Arthritis and joint stiffness. Long periods of lying still can increase inflammation in joints, especially hips, knees, and shoulders. After hours without movement, even mild discomfort can rouse you. Nocturia, frequent urination at night. With age, the bladder becomes less elastic. It holds less and signals more often. This is especially common among older men due to prostate changes and among women post-menopause. Acid reflux. If dinner is eaten too late or the body reclines too soon after a meal. Stomach acid can rise into the esophagus, waking you with a burning sensation. Muscle cramps, often triggered by low magnesium, dehydration, or certain medications. Temperature sensitivity. Older adults are less efficient at regulating body temperature. A slight shift, too warm or too cold, can push the body out of deep sleep. Medication side effects. Blood pressure drugs, antidepressants, pain medications, and even allergy treatments may have hidden impacts on hydration, blood sugar, or alertness levels at night. The key is this: the body rarely shouts, but it always signals, especially when the world is quiet enough to hear. How to listen to these signals and respond gently. If you find yourself waking at 3 a.m. and suspect physical discomfort is the cause, the first step is curiosity, not judgment. Start by observing. Are you always waking for the bathroom? Is there a specific ache, pressure, or sensation that's recurring? Do you feel hungry, overheated, or chilled? Has there been a recent medication change? Once you have a clearer picture, begin making small adjustments. For joint discomfort, consider a gentle stretching routine before bed and use of supportive pillows for knees or back alignment. If you struggle with reflux, avoid lying down within 2 hours of eating and consider slightly elevating your head with a wedge pillow. If cramps wake you, ensure hydration through the day and speak to your doctor about magnesium levels or medication review. Sometimes, the solution is as simple as adjusting the room temperature, using cotton bedding for breathability, or drinking less fluid in the 2 hours before bed while ensuring you stay hydrated earlier in the day. The most powerful thing you can do is become an active partner with your body, tuning into its quiet messages and responding with small acts of care. There is a myth we carry into old age, that sleep should be perfect, seamless, uninterrupted, that waking up means something is wrong. But in truth, waking up is part of being alive, and sometimes it's the body's way of saying, I need a little help. At 3 a.m., your joints may be asking for movement. Your stomach may be seeking balance, your bladder may be fulfilling its duty, and your mind, alert now, may simply be responding to a shift in hormones, circulation, or chemistry. None of these are failures. They are signs of continuing function, however delicate, however subtle. As we age, we don't lose our connection to the body. We deepen it, and part of that depth comes from listening. really listening to what our bones, muscles, organs, and nervous systems are telling us in the quiet hours. If you're waking up because of discomfort, it doesn't mean your body is broken. It means your body is trying to adjust, trying to heal, trying to keep you safe. And when we meet that effort with kindness, not frustration, we invite better rest. Not perfect sleep, but meaningful rest. Not resistance, but cooperation. Not silence, but partnership. So tonight, if something wakes you, before you groan, before you get angry, pause, listen. Maybe your body isn't interrupting your rest. Maybe it's inviting you into deeper care. Chapter 4. Quiet Days. Early nights, lifestyle habits and retirement rhythms. The stillness that speaks. Retirement. For many, it represents freedom, the long-awaited chance to rest, travel, slow down. But beneath that peaceful surface, something subtle begins to shift. Gone are the work schedules, alarms, and morning rush. Gone are the meetings, errands, and daily structure. And what fills the space is stillness. For a time, that stillness is welcome. But then, for many older adults, something strange starts to happen. Bedtime creeps earlier, wake-up time shifts to before dawn, and at 3 a.m., the eyes open, not out of fear or pain, but simply because the rhythm of the day has changed. This is not a disorder. It is a result of lifestyle drift, a slow reorganization of daily habits that affects your internal body clock in ways you may not even notice until you're lying awake in the dark. Real-life story. Walter and the recliner routine. Walter, 74, spent his whole life working outdoors. He was a landscaper, up early, home late, dinner after sunset, asleep by 11 p.m. After retirement, everything changed. His days became slower, his activity level dropped. He started having supper at 5 p.m., napping during the evening news, and by 8:45 p.m., he was tucked into bed, asleep before most people even turned off their phones. Then came the early wake-ups. 3:15 a.m., 3:30 a.m., 2:50 a.m. He'd wake up refreshed but frustrated. Why was he always wide awake when the world was still fast asleep? At first, he blamed aging, but with time and a little guidance, he realized it wasn't his age. It was his schedule. Walter had unknowingly pushed his whole rhythm earlier. And because of that, his body had adjusted perfectly, just not in a way that matched his ideal routine. Once he understood that, he made small but important changes. He took short walks in the late afternoon, delayed his dinner by 30 minutes, avoided falling asleep in his recliner too early, read or called friends in the evening instead of watching TV on low volume. And soon, something shifted. He began falling asleep closer to 10 p.m. And instead of waking at 3 a.m., he started sleeping until almost 5. Not every night, but often enough that his mornings felt peaceful again. It wasn't my body that needed fixing, Walter said. It was my routine. What science says about habit-driven sleep? Your brain is constantly responding to Zeitgebers, German for time givers. These are external cues that tell your body when it's time to wake, eat, rest, and sleep. Light is the strongest of these cues, but others include physical movement, social interaction, meals, mental stimulation. In retirement, many of these cues weaken or disappear. You may spend less time outside in natural light. You may stop setting alarms or following a strict routine. You may eat earlier, move less, or become more sedentary. As a result, your brain starts to interpret these changes as signals that bedtime should come sooner, and so it releases melatonin earlier, causing you to fall asleep earlier and wake earlier. Often around 3 a.m. This is not a malfunction, but a feedback loop. The quieter the day, the earlier the rhythm, and if left unexamined, it can become a self-reinforcing cycle. How to gently reclaim your rhythm. If your day has become too quiet, too early, too passive, it's not your fault. It's the natural result of a life stage that offers more rest than structure. But even in retirement, your body still craves rhythm, light, stimulation, and balance. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to introduce small cues that remind your brain when it's day. And when it's truly night, start with light. Get outside in the morning sunlight. Open the curtains. Take a short walk. Even sitting near a bright window for 20 minutes can reinforce your brain's connection to the daily cycle. Then add motion. Schedule light activity in the late afternoon. It doesn't have to be exercise. It could be stretching, tending the garden, playing with grandchildren, or walking to the mailbox. Next, be intentional about your evening. Keep the lights warm and moderate, not too dim too early. Avoid falling asleep in your chair. If possible, push dinner a bit later and save an enjoyable activity for post-dinner hours, a book, a puzzle, a phone call, music, or spiritual reflection. These are all cues, and over time, they work. They teach your brain when to stay alert and when to rest. They stretch your internal rhythm just enough that waking at 3 a.m. becomes less common, and falling asleep at a healthier time becomes more natural. Sometimes, we assume that sleep problems are biological, that something inside us is breaking down. But often, the root lies in something simpler, routine. When the rhythm of life becomes too quiet, too early, too unstimulated, the body adapts accordingly. It shortens the day, moves sleep earlier, completes rest by the time the world is still dark. And while this isn't inherently harmful, it can feel disorienting, even isolating. The good news is this: just as the rhythm shifted forward, it can also shift back, not through force, but through gentle guidance, not through medication, but through moments of movement, connection, light, and meaningful activity. Waking at 3 a.m. doesn't mean you're broken. It might mean your days have become too dim, too still, too short, and your body, ever faithful, is responding exactly as it was designed to do. So instead of blaming your age, begin to rebuild your day. Invite light in, stretch the evening gently, let your daily life become the cue your body craves. Because sleep is not separate from how we live. It is a mirror of our habits, a reflection of our rhythm. And when we restore that rhythm, when we live with intention, rest will follow. Chapter 5. The Heart at 3 a.m. Emotional echoes in the stillness. When the mind speaks louder than the night, at 3 a.m., the world sleeps. The streets are quiet, the lights dim, the noise of the day finally silenced. But for many older adults, this is precisely when the mind wakes up. You're not in pain, you're not cold or hungry, but your thoughts, they're alert. They begin to wander softly, sometimes painfully. You remember old conversations. You replay moments you wish had gone differently. You feel the outline of people who are no longer here. This isn't insomnia in the traditional sense. This is emotional wakefulness, a state where your heart, not your body, is asking to be heard. Real life story. Gloria and the Echoes of Love. Gloria is 80, widowed for nearly a decade. Her days are full enough. She tends to her garden, watches her favorite shows, chats with her grandchildren. But at night, especially around 3 a.m., a quiet ache creeps in. She doesn't feel afraid, just awake. Her thoughts drift back to her late husband, to the warmth of his voice, to the conversations they never finished, to the laughter they shared in the silence that followed after he was gone. At first, she thought something was wrong with her sleep, but slowly, she began to understand this wasn't a problem of rest. It was a matter of memory, of longing, of unspoken emotion. Her heart was not restless, it was remembering. She began a quiet ritual. Each night before bed, she lit a small candle and whispered a thought aloud, something she wished she'd said, or something she was grateful for. She didn't always sleep through the night, but when she woke, it felt softer, less like interruption, more like invitation. I used to fear the silence, Gloria said. Now I listen to it. What psychology says about late-night wakefulness. As we age, we often accumulate more than just birthdays. We carry stories, regrets, grief, unresolved questions, and fewer distractions to bury them. In youth, emotional restlessness is often drowned out by the chaos of daily life, work, family, deadlines, movement. But in older adulthood, especially in retirement or after loss, there is more stillness, and in that stillness, the psyche opens. Psychologists call this ruminative wakefulness, a state where cognitive and emotional processing surfaces at night. The early morning hours, particularly between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., are when the brain's default mode network becomes more active, pulling us inward. Revisiting memory, identity, and loss. This emotional stirring is not inherently bad. In fact, many therapists argue that it's a healing mechanism, your inner self seeking integration. But when left unacknowledged, it can also lead to chronic overthinking, guilt or regret spirals, increased anxiety, sense of loneliness or isolation. The solution isn't to suppress it, but to create gentle space for it, to give the emotional self a safe place to land before it hijacks your 3 a.m. peace. How to create emotional safety before sleep. You can't always control when the heart speaks, but you can prepare the mind to hold those messages with grace. Begin by creating a soft landing for your thoughts in the evening. That may mean journaling, not to analyze, but simply to empty the mind. One page of loose reflection before bed can reduce mental clutter and allow your emotions to settle more gently. If you find yourself waking at 3 a.m. with a flood of thought, keep a notebook nearby. Write it down, not to fix it, but to release it. You can also create rituals of comfort, soft instrumental music, scented oils, prayer, meditation, or even a small recorded message to yourself reminding you, you are safe, you are loved, you are not alone. It also helps to talk about your thoughts during the day, especially if grief or old regrets are surfacing. Emotional solitude breeds 3 a.m. awakenings, but shared expression through conversation, therapy, or spiritual guidance can reduce that mental echo in the night. Finally, be mindful of your media intake in the evening. Avoid overly stimulating or upsetting content close to bedtime. Your emotional brain is more porous at night. It absorbs more than you realize. There is a wisdom in the body, but there is also a quiet, often overlooked wisdom in the heart. When you find yourself waking up at 3 a.m., not from physical pain or noise, but from a sudden rush of emotion or memory, it may not be a disruption at all. It may be a message, your inner self gently asking to be heard. As we grow older, we carry not only stories, but also the weight of unsaid words, unfinished chapters, and unprocessed feelings. And when the day is over, and the world is quiet, those emotional echoes find their way to the surface. This is not a flaw in your sleep. It is not a problem to be solved with pills or distraction. It is the emotional heart seeking space, asking for integration, calling you, softly, back to your center. To feel reflective at night is not a weakness. It is a sign of depth. It means you are still engaged with your life's meaning. It means your experiences still matter. The love you gave, the people you miss, the things you regret, the wisdom you've gained, all of it wants to be seen. And perhaps that sacred wakefulness isn't about losing sleep, but about being given a moment to remember what shaped you. So the next time you wake in that pre-dawn silence, try not to fight it. Don't rush to distract yourself. Instead, breathe, feel, acknowledge, let your heart speak. Let the stillness become your companion, not your enemy. Because maybe, just maybe, this quiet hour isn't asking for your frustration. It's offering you healing. What 3 a.m. is trying to teach us. There's something profoundly human about waking at 3 a.m. In that quiet hour, when the world is hushed and the weight of the day has faded, something ancient and instinctual rises to the surface. It may come as a thought, a memory, a whisper of the past, or perhaps just a simple awareness. I am awake, I am here, and maybe that's not a problem to solve. Maybe that's the beginning of something deeper. What we often call a sleep disruption might, in truth, be a kind of invitation and opening. At 3 a.m., without distractions, without noise, we are left alone with our truest selves. And in that stillness, the body speaks, the heart speaks, the mind, long drowned by the rhythms of the day, finally has room to breathe. We feel the subtle shifts, the echo of emotions, the call of the body's natural rhythm, the quiet reflection of a life still unfolding. Over these past chapters, we've looked at what wakes us, fading melatonin, shifting circadian rhythms, physical discomfort, the habits of quieter days, and the emotional tides that rise in silence. But beneath all of it lies one simple truth. Waking up at 3 a.m. doesn't mean we're broken. It means we're still in motion, still learning, still connected to the profound intelligence of our body and the quiet resilience of the soul. What is 3 a.m. trying to teach us? Perhaps it's reminding us to slow down, to realign, to care for ourselves not as we once did, but as we must now. Perhaps it's a gentle teacher, asking us to pay attention, not to the clock, but to the life within us that is still vibrant, still awake, still asking to be known. In this stage of life, rest doesn't always come in perfect 8-hour blocks. Sometimes it comes in moments, in the way we honor our needs, create new rhythms, and make peace with the silence. Sometimes the most restful thing we can do is stop fighting what is and start listening to what it's trying to show us. So if tonight, or any night, you find yourself awake when the world is asleep, don't panic, don't despair, take a breath, place a hand on your chest, feel the gentle pulse of a heart that has seen so much and still beats with meaning. Maybe this moment, this quiet hour, is not a disturbance. Maybe it's a reminder that you're still here, still capable of presence, still becoming, because aging is not about losing who you were. It's about becoming more of who you are, even, especially, in the quietest hour of the night. If you've stayed with us until now, thank you, not just for watching, but for listening to your body, to your heart, and to this quiet hour we often misunderstand. Waking up at 3 a.m. is not a curse. It's not failure. It's not a sign that you've aged the wrong way. It's a whisper, a pause, a nudge. It may be asking you to rest differently, reflect more deeply, or realign gently with your changing rhythms. And most of all, it may be reminding you that even in your 70s, 80s, or beyond, you are still growing. Here on Daily Elder Advice, we believe that aging is not the slow fading of a life once lived. It's the deepening of a life still unfolding. And even something as seemingly frustrating as waking in the middle of the night can become a moment of wisdom, presence, and peace if we choose to see it that way. We'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced this kind of 3 a.m. awakening? What has it meant for you? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might bring comfort to someone else walking the same quiet road. And if you found this video helpful, if it brought you insight, calm, or simply made you feel understood, please consider supporting us. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with a loved one, a sibling, a friend, a neighbor, a parent, someone who might also be awake in the middle of the night, looking for peace, because sometimes the best way to rest is simply knowing you're not alone. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next video with more gentle truths, more stories of strength, and more wisdom for every stage of your journey. Until then, rest well, even at 3 a.m.